What's up guys, Hyper Rocket back again with another video. So as I mentioned before, sort of alternating different kinds of videos now, and hopping straight in. A while back I made actually a video on the best computer for playing Minecraft competitively, and it ended up turning into a video more in line of picking out the best budget system to make for Minecraft, just because Minecraft isn't a super demanding game, and because of the way Java runs, it can't really utilize more threads than like one or two. So buying a CPU with tons of resources might not actually be the way to go, which is why that video sort of ended up the way that it did. So something I actually said in the video is that I would be okay with building a budget system. Times have changed, and I guess my thought process has changed a little bit, so I'm not as enthusiastic about actually doing a budget build on the channel, just because the channel is not really dedicated towards budget building or PC building in general. So I figured that it would be useful for a lot of people to just walk through a parts list, just to tell you guys if I were on a tight budget, like what I would really be searching for if I were looking to play Minecraft, and maybe do a little bit of streaming on the side, recording, stuff like that. So again, if this video gets a lot of attention and people really seem to like this idea, then maybe I'll start pursuing it a little bit more, make more parts lists in the future, and maybe we can make this a reality. Hopefully I can get compensation for actually making these computer builds and showing you guys what they might look like. So starting out with our first PC build, this is sort of a 2-in-1 video, just because I'm going to give my punchline away here. This PC build that I got here is more of an interesting build as opposed to a really useful one. It would be something that would be really interesting to try, especially for you new computer builders out there that are interested also in getting into overclocking, stuff like that, but it might not give you the best price to performance, and also the upgrade path is terrible. So that being said, let's just jump straight in. It should do perfectly well. CPU I went with is a Xeon X3440. So I have this here. This is an $11 CPU, so I put $12 here just to be conservative. Another disclaimer I should actually put in, sorry for being so disorganized. All these prices I've found are on Amazon and eBay for US prices. I live on the East Coast of the US, so things might have changed, but I tried to strive for things that have low shipping costs to free shipping. So this will most likely only apply to people living in the States. If you're living internationally, then you're probably gonna have to do some research of your own. So for you guys, I would just say take this video with a grain of salt if you're really looking to build a budget system, and look for things that work and make sense for you. So this is just, for you, this video is just to give you some ideas in terms of what you might want to be looking for. But for the rest of the people who are living in the States and are looking to do a budget system like this, then this would apply to you. So again, Xeon X3440, this is essentially an i7-870, which is a first-gen i7. Figured that it would actually be not the worst for Minecraft. So I mentioned in my video way back when that i7s wouldn't be bad, but at the same time they wouldn't necessarily offer the best performance. So obviously this thing's going to get outperformed by a modern i5. There's no question about that. The thing is that the difference between this and the i5 equivalent, quote unquote, is maybe $2. So like the X3430, which is the i5 equivalent, would maybe go for $7 This is an $11 CPU, $12 CPU, maybe you can get it for less. So I figured you might as well have more resources for such a marginal increase in price. Just a recommendation, if you really wanted to save a couple bucks, you can go for an X3430. But moving on to the CPU cooler. This is a cooler that I found on Amazon. It's just a super budget cooler. It seems a little bit nicer than the traditional Intel stock cooler. It's rated for like 95 watts, I think. So, I mean, a little bit of overclocking should be fine on the CPU cooler. Not too much to go into depth in. But going on to the motherboard, actually from the first time I recorded this, these motherboards seem to have gone up in price. So I was finding these boards, an MSI board, for like 40 bucks, but I found this Asus motherboard, H55 motherboard, for $15 shipping, $40 price. So I'm just gonna ballpark $55 for this. Honestly, that's a little bit much for an H55 board. For this price, you might be able to get a P55, which will give you a little bit more overclocking headroom. So just another suggestion there. Moving on to RAM, not super picky about this. Really just looking for the easiest 2x4 kit that is really available. So I found the Hynix 2x4 gigabyte kit, which should be compatible with that motherboard. 2R/8, 4GB sticks, 10600U, all that stuff seems to line up with whatever this motherboard would support. And of course you can find compatibility for the motherboard online. Just type in the model number and type in memory compatibility or whatever. But that's like our main core platform, so that's pretty cool, pretty interesting. Knock that out of the way. And as you notice, like, this is a very cheap setup. So $27 with the CPU and cooler, and then an additional $55 for the motherboard. Like, really cheap. Case, honestly, I'm not super picky about this. This is just one I found. I figured that it would look decent because it has a side panel. It's a $40 case, and I think that this is probably the sweet spot in terms of price. I wouldn't really go cheaper than this because usually you'll find stuff like the really budget Roswell cases for anything less than this, and those really have terrible build quality, bad airflow, made of essentially sheet metal. So this is the thing I found. Has a backup fan, exhaust fan rather, and you get a side panel, a clear side panel, so that's kind of cool. You get some bay drives, bays for your hard drives and things like that. I think it's an ITX case, mini ITX, so it should be able to support our motherboard here. But again, not super picky here. I would just look in this general price range, and I would try to not go cheaper. Power supply, so if I'm being completely honest here, this is really where this budget or this parts list really dies, just because PSUs are really expensive right now. So if you can, I would go used and try to get a really high value, good reputation brand power supply on the used market. But I don't really feel super comfortable offering that recommendation to a very large audience. For the sake of safety, I want to recommend a reputable power supply that's guaranteed to work, or at least more guaranteed to work. So here, I have the Thermaltake Smart 500 watt 80 plus white certified PSU. $48 right now on Amazon. Really bad price for a 500 watt unit that's only 80 plus white certified, but it's going to do the job. So you're not going to win any awards when it comes to efficiency, but it's going to be more than enough power to power your system. And if you want to upgrade down the road, you can. Storage, I went for a single 480 gigabyte SSD, $40 on Amazon. That's actually a really good price. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Here, PNY CS900 480 gigabyte SSD. Really good price. If you wanted to go 500 gigabytes, you can, but it's $10 more, really not worth it. So I figured that this would kind of be the sweet spot. And 480 gigabytes should be more than enough for Minecraft, your OS, a few other applications like Discord, other games as well. But if you're really looking to play big titles like Warzone, Fortnite's getting really big now, you probably want to supplement this with another drive. So you might want to get like a 1 terabyte or something. But at that point, if you're really spending that much on a really expensive SSD, you probably don't even want to go for this model, and you probably want to up your budget in general. So I guess we're sort of getting ahead of ourselves, and we should save that for another video. But carrying on, graphics cards, this is another weak spot of the build. I can't really seem to find good graphics card prices on the used market or the new market. RTX 3000 series launched pretty recently, and the RTX 3080 sold out in 3 minutes of release date, so definitely an area of concern for the general market of graphics cards. But I figured that going with an older card would be fine, and a mid-range older card at that should be more than fine for Minecraft. To my knowledge, GTX 600 series cards support NVIDIA Shadowplay, but don't quote me on that. Should be able to find a workaround anyway, and worst case scenario, you can actually use the basically the instruction set for OBS with using the CPU as opposed to the GPU. So worst case scenario, you use your CPU for encoding if you wanted to record. Otherwise, don't really worry about it. But GTX 660, $50. I actually found one for a little bit cheaper recently, so this is $35, $9 shipping from Pennsylvania. Of course, this might vary based on where you live. Moving on now, that actually completes the computer build altogether. You will need Wi-Fi, so you might have to buy a USB adapter for that, or if you have your router right next to you, if you have an Ethernet cord lying around, you will need that as well. Moving on to peripherals, I figured I'd just throw these in just because they're another part of what your setup would look like. Monitor I chose not to include because it sort of depends on preference when it comes to what kind of refresh rate you want, what kind of resolution you want. So something I would just generally recommend is just a 1920 by 1080 screen with 60 hertz. Should be more than fine. If you're really looking to take your game to the next level, go for an 144 hertz or 165 hertz panel, and that should be fine as well. But again, you'll be spending a lot more, so keep that in mind. But I'm gonna start off with a mouse. I haven't actually tried this mouse out, but it looks like a really great value. And I tried the wireless version of this mouse, and I actually really enjoyed that. Maybe a little heavy, but I'm guessing the weight's gonna go down. It's the Aukey Knight. It's actually a G Pro wireless clone, except with a wire. So, and you get extra side buttons, or I'm sorry, extra DPI buttons right here, and you have an extra side button here. I think it comes with software as well, so you get pretty cool RGB with the logo and scroll wheel and the ring around. Pretty good sensor. I think it's PMW 3325, which is really respectable. Shouldn't really deal with any spinouts there, so I think this is a really safe option, and it's a trusted shape. So arguably the best shape on the market for 30 bucks. Really a no-brainer here. Keyboard is the Mage G. I got this like pink mechanical keyboard. I think this by default comes with MX Blue clone switches, so probably Aotemu blues. If you don't like the pink, you can go for a black variant as well, but I figured the pink would be kind of funky. And it would be just a pretty cool addition to your setup. For the mouse pad, this is a trusted mouse pad, I think mediocre by most people's standards nowadays, but the SteelSeries QCK I feel like is a very classic mouse pad. Cloth mouse pad, more of a control pad as opposed to a speed one. I think it's pretty decent in general. Again, precise aiming is not a huge thing for Minecraft, so I think this is more than safe. But that concludes my initial parts list for a fully custom budget Minecraft PC. If I'm being completely honest, this is a really low price, which is really cool. It's not the sweet spot in terms of price though. And I would definitely recommend that you try to get your foot in the door with Ryzen. So like maybe first gen Ryzen on the used market would definitely be a good option. I can definitely go into that in another video, so please let me know in the comments if that's something that you guys would like to see. But otherwise, if you really wanted to stick to a budget like this, I would probably go the pre-built route and upgrade it. So I've included some other alternative, or another alternative build that might actually suit you guys better. So if you actually want to stick to this budget, like $350 or less, I would say, I would try something like this. So if you type in on eBay i7 4770 and then hit desktops and all-in-ones, then you'll get a list of pre-built systems that come with the i7. You will have to search around a little bit when it comes to RAM, case, cooler, motherboard, stuff like that, but I found one. It's a Lenovo ThinkCentre M83. It comes with the i7, as I mentioned, and 8 GB of RAM. No storage space, so you will have to get that on your own, but of course it comes with all the other necessary things. So 8 gigs of RAM, the power supply, cooler, case, motherboard, all the necessary stuff. $185 for a 4th gen i7 is pretty good. You get 4 cores, 8 threads with the i7 4770. Excuse me. Okay, so you get the Lenovo ThinkCentre M83 with the i7 4770. That's Haswell architecture with, so it's Haswell architecture, which also means that you get 4th gen IPC, which is really the important thing when it comes to gaming. So just to give you guys some perspective, I'm just gonna look this up now, like i7 4770 versus, let's say, what's a common CPU? A Ryzen 5 1600. That's like the streaming build I use. If you guys take a look at this, just from an immediate standpoint, actually at stock speeds, the i7 4770 IPC-wise will beat out the Ryzen 5 1600. Of course, if you overclock the Ryzen 5 1600, you get 113.0 as opposed to 106. Pretty similar processors when it comes to IPC. So if you guys want similar performance to what I show you guys on my videos for the most part, this will do the job just fine. And as I mentioned in that video, RAM speeds are not a huge issue. So going back to the pre-built route, $185 for the pre-built. You definitely need a storage device, so I recommend the same 480 gigabyte solid state drive up here. And then graphics card, I think that you can afford to spend a little bit more. So this is more of a sweet spot build. I would go for something in the same tier as an RX 480 by AMD. So other alternatives would be GTX 970, GTX 960, that's sort of on the lower end. GTX 1050 Ti, if you can get one at a good price. GTX 1063 gig, RX 470, RX 570, RX 580. So all those, I would say. I can list those out, so just for you guys' convenience. Okay, I think that's a pretty good start for graphics cards. So if you guys can pick up any of these at a good price, ideally the 960 would be paying much less than $100, but honestly if you paid $100 for any of these cards, I'd say that that's a decent deal and it would put you in a pretty good sweet spot for this build. Otherwise, if you really want to save money on the graphics card, you can go with the GTX 660. You're just going to be limited in terms of what games you can play. Scrolling down more, the last thing you'll really need is, because we're not upgrading our power supply from the pre-built, you will need an adapter from a SATA cable to a PCI Express cable so that you can actually power your graphics card up here. So I found on Amazon SATA cable to a PCI 6-pin, $5, really easy. So that concludes my parts list for a budget Minecraft system. I think this would be a really good system to make, especially this second one, if I were on a tight budget and trying to get into YouTube and trying to play Minecraft. So something I didn't really realize until recently, just from people commenting and stuff, is that Invaded Lands is a really intensive server when it comes to CPU performance. So having a really strong IPC computer is is way more important than what I originally thought. So I might make an updated video on Invaded Lands in particular when it comes to what computer you'll need in general. So let me know if you guys want to see that. Again, like and share this video, comment down below if you found this helpful or entertaining, and if I should do more videos like this. So I appreciate you all tuning in to watch this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace out.